Hello, and welcome back to the All Out Soccer Podcast. Myself, Jeremy Goldstein, my co-host, Joseph McBride. We're two football fans talking about soccer, focused on a fusion of the MLS, the U.S. men's and women's national team, and the 2026 World Cup. I don't have to say build-up anymore because the World Cup is here. The U.S. have 2 games in the books. Most teams have 2 games in the books through the World Cup group stage. Joe, it's alive. It's alive and well, the tournament.
Yeah. It's nice to actually see you, not through a screen for once.
You're here.
It's great.
You're here. We're in the flesh.
Yeah. How you doing? Are you enjoying the World Cup, man?
I'm enjoying it a lot. I think it really helps that the big players are performing. I mean, begrudgingly, Cristiano Ronaldo scored twice today. I was relieved to see him not score a hat trick. Sorry to piss off any Ronaldo fans, because that would just dominate the discourse. But it's useful for the networks to be able to say, "Oh, Mbappe, look at Mbappe, look at Ronaldo, look at Erling Haaland, blah blah blah." I think that's kind of taking away from talking about all these smaller, interesting teams. Mm-hmm. Everyone's just talking about the big names.
Yeah, although Jordan, Algeria last night was genuinely one of my favourite late games so far. It was unbelievable.
The late night games are quite fun.
Yeah.
Did you see Paraguay, Turkey last week? That was chaotic.
That was also one of my favourite games so far. Just red card, obviously it was historic with the first, covering the mouth. Turkey, we'll get into them in a minute, but they have been awful this tournament. The dark horse tag is not one that you want. No. Turkey and Ecuador have learned that the hard way.
I still think Ecuador, there's time for Ecuador, but they can't score a goal to save their life.
Yeah, true.
I do have that vocal stim right now. It's like covering his mouth, red card from the referee in the Paraguay-Turkey game. Anyway, we are here to talk about the U.S.'s upcoming fixture against Turkey this Thursday. In America, we call it a dead rubber, which means the game just doesn't matter. For both teams, the U.S. have gone through as winners of the group. Turkey, already out with 2 losses. Turkey have played very well so far. They have over 40 shots, I believe. Can't find the back of the net. The likes of Arda Güler, Kenan Yildiz hasn't been enough for the Turkish side to score a goal at all. And that's it. The World Cup's done. Losses to Australia and Paraguay. U.S. obviously 4-1 winners over Paraguay and then 2-0 winners over Australia. They're in as group winners, so this game really does not matter. However, there's a lot of chatter about whether to keep the momentum and blah, blah, blah. But before we get into any of that, Joe, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the U.S.'s performance so far at this World Cup? Again, relative to expectations.
Genuinely, I'd say at least an 8 for me. I've been really impressed. Not only have the 4-1 blowout in the first week was, people were expecting the US to win that game, but the way they did it, I thought, everyone was so excited. It kind of lit the World Cup fever, the World Cup fire for the whole country. Mm-hmm. It was impressive. In terms of expectations, it's been here and there heading into the tournament. No one really knew how they'd be under Pochettino. And then to follow that up against Australia, who beat Turkey, it looked a bit shaky. There was a few times. Australia should have scored in that game, I'm going to be honest. But you still saw out a 2-0 win. The vibes are good. Everyone's I just think the whole thing's been really, really positive. Of course, you haven't faced, without being rude, a major nation yet. But you've got to play what's put in front of you. And I think it's been amazing so far. So I'd say a good 8.
8 is good. Why not a 10 then? Just because of the nation level, the competition
If you'd
level?
have done Argentina and France 5-0 back-to-back and all the rest of it, I'd give you a 10. You're not going to be... I don't think anyone can be perfect yet because you haven't seen... The team hasn't gone through everything they're going to go through during the competition. They haven't been put to the full test and seen everything.
That's not their fault.
Right, but they're still not going to get a 10 for it.
Fine. I'm going 7.5 because, similar point, there have been stretches of utter dominance. There was a long period in the first half against Paraguay where their opponents, Paraguay, simply didn't have the ball. They simply didn't have the ball, and they didn't have the ball anywhere near the U.S.'s attacking third. It was only in their own defensive third. And the way they controlled the zone where the ball is on the pitch is a relentless wave after wave of pressure. And that was with a 1-0 lead. That wasn't like in the second half chasing a game where the defense is ceding territory. No, the U.S. were on the offensive and on the front foot. And that was really, really amazing to see. Now against Australia, there were long phases with the U.S. were ceding that territory. I think in the second half, the U.S. did not really do a good job of
wasn't a good second half.
Taking that game by the thorns. I mean, there were some long balls in place to Folarin Balogun and whatnot, where he had a through ball in, but it wasn't like consistent pressure. It was more like, the U.S. were absorbing pressure and hitting on the counter. And look, you can say you had a 2-0 lead. Why would you be playing aggressively? But I didn't think they were if you look at Spain when they have a 2-0 lead, for example, they're holding the ball because the best defense is not allowing your opponents to even have a chance. And I still think the U.S. don't quite have that little shutdown, lockout gear. I mean, they were just so many goals ahead against Paraguay that it didn't even matter.
Yeah.
But against Australia, when the game was kind of tenuous and in the cards, I didn't think they did a great job of shutting down. Also, this Australian team is not great, in my opinion. They really just don't have a lot of talent. Nestor Iracunda, arguably their best player. I don't think he would make the U.S. national team.
No.
So there was just phases of that game where it was each against a better team. I don't know if this wall holds up.
No, the second half wasn't great, and Australia should have scored.
Yeah,
at least one, I think. I could be wrong. Obviously, I'm not American. I don't think you're the best when you are trying to keep possession. Like the US to me looks really threatening when you are on the break, and obviously it can be a bit difficult when you do have a decent lead, and it's like, well, this is the way we react and play the best. How do you get around that? And I'm sure as the tournament goes on, I feel like from what I've seen so far, you're going to be in it for a couple of knockout rounds at least. I'm not going to put an end goal to it, but you'll find that out. Like, yeah, it hasn't been perfect. I think it's been very positive. Like, we both went into this thinking Turkey are going to dominate this group. We thought the US would come second, but it will be positive enough. But we're heading into the last game against Turkey, which we all thought was going to decide how the group is going to go. It's already decided. The US is first and Turkey are in last, and they're already waiting for their flight back home.
It would be much more interesting, even if Turkey could win this game and it's still advanced. But
I think it's a good thing they're not. I think obviously if you're going to win the group, it's irrelevant. But I mean, they've been terrible so far.
Yeah,
like awful. But I think it's a good problem for the US to have, where it's like, we don't need to win this game. Who do we play? How should we? There's no pressure on it.
It makes me think that Turkey can kind of come out and just, with kind of the monkey off their back, can really just play free flowing. And Arguler wants to rip one from 30 yards. He doesn't have to worry about upsetting anyone because their tournament's over. He can kind of just get away with it, and that makes me a little cautious. But before we get into a full look at Turkey, I just want to talk about the big question, we think, is what Mauricio Pochettino should do with his lineup. Should he rotate? I mean, it's pretty much an unchanged 11 from the first 2 match days, barring Christian Pulisic, who obviously left at halftime of game 1. Ricardo Pepi came in to start match day 2. Besides that, same team. Joe, this is the hot button topic. What would you do if you were coach? This game does not matter for anything. I mean, for a lot of players also, this is their only time they're going to represent the U.S. at the World Cup. For a lot of these players, it would probably mean a lot to get an appearance or even a start. What would you do if you were the coach?
Well, I said to you before we start recording that Pochettino made it very clear he wanted to keep the momentum going and keep the results up. If I was coach, I'd definitely make changes. You made a great point there with this could be the only time representing them. Obviously, for a lot of good players, it won't be. But for example, could you give a start to Matt Turner? The game doesn't mean anything. He's going to start a World Cup game against a good nation.
He's already been in the World Cup.
Of course, but he's not been the guy here, right? So much different topic. When England got grouped in Brazil, we just randomly took Joe Hart out and gave Ben Foster a start against Costa Rica in the final group game. Ended up drawing it 0-0 clean sheet. But I'd make changes. First of all, just going from the back. Like, I don't think too many. And the thing is, you've got a good roster. Like, people, when these debates come up, it's, we don't want to lose the way we're playing. We don't want to completely capitulate. Well, why should you? You're playing a certain way. Everyone's there together. You've got, obviously, 15 players on the bench at all times. Like, just chop and change. I'd say I'd maybe change the goalie. Maybe give Tim Ream a break. He's 38 and he is looking good, but maybe pull him out. Maybe see who else you can play in that midfield, like kind of the central midfield role for if things start to not work. But Tyler Adams, banging the drum. He's had the most interceptions of the tournament so far. And looking forward, Haji Wright, does he get a go? Do you want to completely change it? It's a difficult one. I would make changes. I'm not qualified to say where I'd change them. I'm not in that squad environment, but I definitely think rotation should happen.
This is what I would do. Turkey are going to have more of the ball than Australia did, especially when the game is 0-0 at the start. I think Pochettino should experiment with an absorb pressured lineup. Like, this is what happens when we're trying. Like, you should just be experimenting with a possible 11 that you might field in the second half of a knockout stage game against another European team. I mean, look, it's wide open and unclear who the U.S. may play in the knockouts, for example. But let's say the U.S. go up against the Dutch, for example, in the quarterfinals or something like that. It would be useful to get the shell or framework of we need to absorb pressure. Here's a starting 11 we'd put on the field, or here's a 11 that would come in the second half of a game with the substitution of what it would look like. So who are more defensive-minded players? Christian Roldan would be one of them. He is unfortunately out. So what do? I would start. I think Sebastian Berhalter is going to start this game instead of Tyler Adams.
Don't mind it.
I'm fairly confident that's going to be the case. Tyler Adams is going to get a break. Maybe he'll come on in the second half. Maybe not, depending on how the game goes. In defense, I mean, look, Tim Ream's going to be on the pitch for every elimination game, but he brought on Austin Trusty last week, so I think he's now at the top of the bench center back pecking order. Joe Scaley came on last week. I think then if he's a player that Poch likes, then give him a start, because if he's someone who's possibly going to come on, give him a start from the get-go. I would then looking ahead up front, Sergino Dest has played both games. Do you give someone like Alejandro Zendejas a look on the wing? Completely different player. Dest is a wingback. Zendejas is a pure winger, arguably the only pure winger on the team. Do you give him a look? I would get a little funky with it. I would not play anyone who's an injury risk. So again, Adams and Ream would be out for me. And then a goalkeeper, I'm sorry, you're playing. This is Matt Freeze's tournament. If he's playing, you just want him to get as many reps. You think
he stays in?
You just want him to get as many reps as possible. That's just my philosophy towards goalkeeping. It's just like get familiarity playing with the defenders in front of you. Because sure, let's say he gets 45 more minutes with Austin Trusty. Let's say they're playing Spain in 2 weeks. And Austin Trusty's in the second half. I'd rather have them had half of experience 2 weeks ago than have it be just someone there for the thrill of it,
Yeah, I think with the goalkeeper position, it's unique because obviously it's about your ability and your saves and everything like that, but your mentality is massive when you're in goal. Mm-hmm. Like confidence and repetition and everything can be the difference between you saving a potential game-winning chance or letting it in. So I do get that. I do think the rest of it, rotate it. There's still hopefully a long tournament left for the US. You want it, and it's not a case of you bench these players, suddenly we're going to fall apart. But some players are going to want to play and prove that they should be involved more. So it's a little bit of an appetite thing for them. But contrary to us, or me mainly, being big on Turkey, I've been so disappointed by them. And everyone's going with this headline of 62 shots. They've done nothing with it. 62 shots.
There have been some that have been good.
Barely any. It's been tragic.
One guy, Mulder, the defender, hit the post twice against one shot.
My point, we're talking about a defender.
Yeah, no.
They've got Arda Güler, they've got Kenan Yildiz, they've got one of many Yilmaz's, a Troglou, and we're talking about a defender.
Arda Güler is one of the most overrated players in the world, in my opinion. I
don't know about that. He's like 22. But
I like Yildiz. I don't think he should go for 100 million, but I think because he's Turkish and plays for Juventus, I think that sort of novelty factor increases his transfer value, if that makes sense. Kind of akin to Dusan Vlahovic for Juventus a few years ago when he was also pretty CRAP. But it's an interesting Turkish team. I mean, I would treat them with respect. I think they're going to come out, again, playing loose and free-flowing and willing to shoot from anywhere.
But they've also got nothing to lose.
Yeah, so
and they've got a lot of pride to restore, because I would not want to be on that plane back to Turkey.
But I don't think that means where it's like I'm going to put in the hard yard in every second. I think that means is I'm going to try to leave my mark on the tournament. If I'm a player going into that game, I'm going to try to leave my mark on the tournament, which might leave you then more exposed for getting beaten by something simple because someone doesn't want to mark, because someone wants to be a hero instead. Versus when there's all to play for, there's obviously more buy-in because, it's just I'm going to work harder to make this challenge because it affects the team and blah, blah, blah. But when that's gone, it's let me just have my own moment.
They've been the worst team of the entire tournament. They cannot go home with 0 points. They might, but they can't settle for that. They've got to make a statement in this. I've seen the reaction in Turkey. I would not want to be on that plane back with 0 points.
I watched part of the Iraq game yesterday. They're the worst team in the tournament. But Turkey, considering
they've scored
pedigree,
though.
That is true.
Jordan have scored.
Who else hasn't scored?
There are some teams that only played one game.
Ecuador haven't scored, but they have a point.
Yeah. Anyway, the US needs to It's going to be still an intriguing game. It's a dead rubber in terms of competitiveness and what's going to come from that. But I do feel like the US and those that come in are going to have a lot to prove, and these Turkish people will want to leave with some pride.
Moving on to the Christian Pulisic question.
Right.
Didn't play last game. Didn't play the second half against Paraguay. He has returned to training yesterday. He missed over a week of training through injury. Obviously, this is a player who had an injury-riddled campaign at AC Milan this year. Very streaky player all of a sudden. He seemed to be rounding into form some good friendlies in the build-up to the World Cup and looked sprightly in the first half, I thought, against Paraguay. He's the face of this national team. It is important to have him on the field. Would you play him? Let's say he's deemed fit. I'm not saying 100%, but deemed fit. Would you risk him at all against Turkey? Excuse me.
Unless he's 100% fit, there is zero chance I'm starting him. If he's not 100% fit, I mean, he's going to be on the bench anyway. You have to be. But I probably wouldn't, to be honest, unless Pochettino is convinced and the medical staff have said, he's very close to being back, and he could maybe do 20, 30 minutes. I'd maybe bring him on for the last 15.
Yeah.
But like we said, there's nothing to lose from this game. Why would you risk losing your main player?
I would want him to get 15 minutes. I'd be disappointed if he didn't. I'd be also shocked if he started. I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, I guess I would. I would be bamboozled if he started and confused. I wouldn't be surprised. No, it's like a statement, like he's back, he's fit, and he's getting yanked at halftime. I would prefer to see him come on in the second half. It's a statement that shows he is fit and ready to play. Think about Spain with Lamine Yamal in the first game. Well, he came on in that game against Cabo Verde, showed that he was ready to go at the World Cup when there were rumors that he was going to miss multiple games. And then he started the second game and was great. And Spain won like 4 or 5-0 against Saudi Arabia. I would just like to see him come on in the second half. And then just to be, so it's like Christian's going to start the round of 32.
Yeah, I think for me, in terms of risk, because it's a game that doesn't matter, you can maybe take a few risks in your personnel selection based on tactical reasons, not fitness, in my opinion.
Yeah. If Christian Pulisic, our good friend Christian Pulisic, is unable to play, let's say he's unable to play even in the round of 32, do you continue with Ricardo Pepi on the right wing?
I think so. He deserved that he showed to play there against Australia. If someone isn't available, and he's obviously a good understudy in playing there, I've been really impressed with him. I loved his performance against Paraguay. It looked great when he came on, but he was good against Australia as well in the build-up. I think he's a great player, and obviously we said going into this that I thought that he'd be a guy that would get a big move, and I'm pretty confident that's going to happen. He's the standout for me. You could obviously rotate with other players like Tillman or McKennie pushed out, but I wouldn't get too bogged down with that. I think he can play there. You've then got a different number 9 through the middle, and then out right you've got a bunch of options, whether it's Weyer or someone else.
I mean, Tillman would have, but pre-tournament, pre-build-up game seemed like the logical fit, but he's playing starting in a double pivot.
He looks all right as well.
He looks great. I mean, look, he's playing much higher up the field than Tyler Adams. Let's be real. It's not like he's in N'Golo Kante or anything, but he does look very, very impressive. And what a boon to the team. But that's just one less attacking player. You can play Gio Reyna and have him play wide. I think he kind of played opposite Pulisic. He started against Senegal last month. That's one other option. Obviously, Reyna scored that goal against Paraguay, even though everyone seemed like was kind of walking around the pitch at that point, waiting for the final whistle. That's just one thing to monitor. U.S. player of the tournament so far. Flo Balogun has 2 Man of the Match awards, obviously. Spent a long time in the United States. By long time, I mean 2 months after he was born.
His birth, yeah.
He was born here. That we can confirm, and he has barely spent any other time. But he's embracing the life in the USA and whatnot after officially announcing his allegiance. I think it was about 3.5 years ago now.
2023, yeah.
He's one shout for player of the tournament. Do you have anyone else you want to call out?
I think Sergino Dest has been unbelievable. I've loved watching him. He's had good chances in both the games. He's bombing up the field. He's looked good defensively. With Dest, obviously this is a guy that has been at Chris Collinsworth, but this has been a guy that's been at Barcelona, and now he's gone to PSV Eindhoven, and he's been in and out of the team. His main issue has been fitness. This is the best I've seen him look in a while with that consistency, and he's a serious player.
Yeah, it's a world of a difference when you're not asked to defend.
Oh, he's just like look at him go. He's just around, and he's like causing trouble, and he's just getting involved in everything, and it looks like he's been everywhere, and he's just someone that I've looked at when the US is attacking. I'm seeing him, and just when we're working as well, and suddenly there's a big shout, and Dest is there. I've just been really impressed with how he's played so far.
When you play defensive players further up the pitch, they still bring that defensive value with them, just to the different third. So Manchester United used to sometimes employ Aaron Wan-Bissaka at wingback, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka doesn't really know how to play football. He really cannot pass the ball. It's a big flaw in his game. It's the reason why he kind of fell out at United. However,
that's a bit harsh.
Put him up the field, and he is an absolute pressing and running machine, and tackling and interception machine. And you're just kind of borrowing that defensive quality that you would get in your own defensive third and just moving it up the pitch. So Dest, you're still getting the pace, you're still getting the athleticism, you're still getting the cutback ability of Dest that he brings, the dynamism, with that attacking quality in the final third. That's why a lot of fullbacks and wingers, are cut from similar cloth. Gareth Bale, whatnot, whatever. And in the modern game, where pressing and everything is so valuable, I think it's been a useful call. So as group winners, the U.S. are going to play a third place finisher. Thank you, Gianni Infantino, for expanding the field from 32 to 48 teams. That means we have, for the first time ever, a round of 32 coming up. The U.S. aren't one of the group winners who are playing a second place finisher. They're playing a third place finisher. There's a variety of options the U.S. can play. I'm going to list all of the teams the U.S. can play. No one is quite sure how it's going to exactly shake up. And this is what we're going to be left with. So out of Group B, the possible third place finishers are Bosnia-Herzegovina and Qatar. Joe saw Bosnia last week. Out of E, it's the Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, Ecuador and Curacao are still alive. Out of F, it's likely to be Japan or Sweden, though the Dutch could fall in there, but it's unlikely. They play a terrible Tunisian team next. Out of Group I, it's most likely Senegal, assuming they beat Iraq, which is not a certainty, but I'm going to put my money on that. Group J, it's either Austria or Algeria. Those two sides play each other. What speaks to you from those sides, and what speaks against you?
I wouldn't want to play any of the African teams, especially not Cote d'Ivoire or Senegal.
No, they're
Algeria, perhaps, but they still have one Riyad Mahrez on the right, so you never know what he
didn't
can do.
Start the first game. He had an assist yesterday.
And he won a free kick. Yeah, he took the free kick in, but he still didn't look great. If I could pick and choose, obviously Curacao, I don't think they're going to make it. No. In terms of who I think will make it, and who you could play, Algeria is one that you could maybe accept, but the US would beat Bosnia. I saw them play Canada. It was a 1-1 draw. It was a great game. They took the lead. They're the tallest team in the tournament, so you'd have to be able to set pieces and stuff like that. But Canada should have won that game. And I'm not going to turn this into who's better, Canada or the US, but just from what I saw and then watching their following game against Switzerland, they're just a beatable team, and the US is much better than them. Yeah. So if I could pick from that, I'd say them, but I definitely want to be avoiding, Japan, maybe even Sweden, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. Absolutely not.
The problems with some of those teams for the US, just to go through, Japan have a really organized press. The US haven't really been pressed too high in most of these games. They've gotten early goals, which have helped. I think that could be something that's an issue. Sweden, of course, the two dynamic forwards. How would the U.S. handle that defensively? Isak and Gyökeres, say what you want about them. Very pacey players as well. I think that could be a bit of an issue. Ecuador, let's be real. If the U.S. play Ecuador, that game is finishing 0-0 and going to penalties 100%. I would bet my entire life savings on that.
With Ecuador.
That game no one will score in that game. Ecuador, again, very rigidly organized team. The attacking play is just based on 39-year-old Enner Valencia, who's not looked great. I agree with your take about Bosnia. I don't think Qatar are going to advance. And then the African teams, Senegal and Ivory Coast. Everyone's talking about Ghana just off of a draw with your England today. Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire are much more talented teams. Much more talented teams across the board. They just had some harder matchups so far to date. So I just think the U.S. would actually be undermanned from a talent point of view. I think Yan Diomande, for example, for Cote d'Ivoire, is one of the best individual players at this tournament. And then Austria, Algeria, I don't think either of those teams should be considered big threats to the U.S. I think Algeria are a little better on paper, but I think it would end up in a bit of a dogfight, I think, with those. Wide range of options here, though.
Austria are a decent side. They're better than Algeria. And to back up your point just very quickly, Senegal were better than France in the game opener, the first half.
I was there.
The first half.
It was just nothing happened.
But the Cote d'Ivoire and Germany game, they were better for at least 75 minutes and then just got undone by Dennis Indel off the bench.
Well, yes, it was then the German side switched to more methodical.
So, but yeah, no, you are right. But I still think I've been impressed. The US have been in 8, so I think they'll win the round of 32 anyway. I'm pretty confident.
I'm excited. That would put the US in line to face the winner of Egypt versus the Czech Republic in the round of 16. Of course, subject to change. Egypt coming off a strong result against New Zealand. They're in charge of that group that also consists of Belgium, who look a little flat so far. The Czech Republic third in Group A behind Mexico and South Korea. Again, subject to change, but the US look to be, knock on wood, in good shape. 2 easy matchups to start the knockout stage.
I think the US would beat Egypt or Czech Republic, 100%. Egypt
100%.
No, well, why not? I'm going to get the takes out there. Egypt, I don't think it looked great. I was very happy for Salah when he scored against New Zealand, but again, New Zealand were made to look better, I think. Belgium have been awful. Terrible. I mean, they should have walked that. That's the easiest group in the whole competition, in my opinion. No disrespect.
It's a really bad group.
And they've absolutely snuffed it. So, and Czech Republic, they've got some decent players, a lot aging. When they came through the playoffs, and to do so, they beat Ireland and Denmark, which, to be fair, is they've got Ireland were there more for vibes. Denmark
that was also on penalties, was it not?
Both of them were 2-2 draws on penalties. They were there to make up the numbers, no disrespect. As a lot of the teams are really, but the US would beat Czech Republic.
Yeah, and then that would likely see the US into a quarterfinal matchup against España, I believe. I don't know, it might be different if they're winning, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there because so many things can change.